we are back. Welcome to a Sunday night edition of the Paranormal Voice. I am, of course, your host, Dale, and we are in for another exciting day. Just want to say hello and everybody. It is such a beautiful day outside. I know you can't tell because I have my black screen on, but I am actually outside. As you could probably hear, there are motorcycles going by, and of course, you probably hear the occasional boat rolling by. As I right across from me is the Detroit River. I'm staring at this as I'm talking to you guys. But it is such an amazing day. I had to take this conversation outside because we will be talking a little bit about cryptids. I'm pretty sure of it. Happy Sunday, expression of the outdoors. Glad you can join us here on a Sunday. Folks, our guilty pleasure around here is always talking about cryptids and all things paranormal, and my guest tonight is absolutely no different. She is a producer and a researcher for the documentary film Small Town Monsters. She also helped establish Small Town Monsters Publishing, amongst other things. She loves talking about all things scary and spooky. You can also hear her telling her stories over on her podcast, The Lore You Know. And also, she is also co-host of the STM podcast, Monsteropolis, which is so amazing. I'm so glad I finally get to sit down and pick her brain because it's just one of those people you meet in person and they're so fascinating because the stuff that they have to tell. And now I want the world to hear about it. So right now, I like to welcome out my guest, the one, the only, Miss Heather Moser. How you
Hi,
doing?
I am doing well. I am jealous of you sitting outside. That was a great idea. I should I should have done that myself since we're finally out of the heat.
uh,
Well, a little bit, but much better than it has been.
yeah,
And
I am a very outdoorsy person. I love being
mm,
outdoors. I could live outdoors 24/7 if it was possible, but
yeah,
unfortunately, uh, you can't because of the weather. We got a few hellos here. Here's Bigfoot Michigan Rob saying hello,
hi.
Heather. We have expressions of the outdoor, and we have Angie and Rick Family Adventures. So everybody, it is so good to see everybody. Oh, we have another one that just popped in here. Here we go.
Hi.
Outback Orchard. So everybody is here in the room. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I am so happy that I finally get to sit down. I know it's been quite a while since we actually ran into each other.
Mm-hmm.
With everything that's been going on, and of course, the saddest note of all, our favorite August adventure is not happening this year. The MI Paracon, of course, that's what we are talking about. And thank you, Angie. This channel is a lot of fun. And we do talk about cool stuff because I have cool guests all the time. And that's what I love to do. I love to talk about amazing things, because the paranormal field is such a big umbrella and there's so much going on. And I think ever since COVID, I think the paranormal field has just exploded
Yeah.
with way more talk about Bigfoot and Dogman and aliens than I've ever heard before. I think
Mhm.
the ghost part of it has actually been taking a back seat to the stories and the researchers that are coming out of the woodworks about Bigfoot and Dogman and stuff like that. So here we are. You are the producer and researcher for a documentary called Small Town Monsters.
Mhm.
So before we get into talking about that, though, I have to let's tell the audience, how did you get into this whole spooky world that we call the paranormal?
Well, it was something that's just kind of always been around. I remember watching Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack when I was little and being morbidly curious by it. It terrified me, but I always wanted to watch it. So, being raised with that, I was raised with also my mother telling me about her childhood home being haunted and some interactions they had with the Ouija board. So, that stuff was always there. Also, growing up not far from Minerva, Ohio, which is where the Minerva monster thing happened in the late 70s. Everybody in the area, I don't want to say everybody, that's kind of a broad brush, but a lot of people talked about Bigfoot being in the area as more of a matter of fact type of thing. Um, there was even someone that I went to school with in elementary school whose family had had some interactions with some Bigfoot. I think it was like a family situation on their property, and it was just something that was always there. You know, it was always a piece of interest for me, and so I just kind of kept looking into these things. And then when I got older, is whenever like the Taps people came out with their show, and you know, then Ghost Adventures came out, all of these things, and it became that was almost a moment like, wow, I can actually go see some of these really cool places. Like that's an option to go.
I know, right?
uh, so I think probably my first like really, yeah, my first haunted location that I was aware of that I visited was the Mansfield Reformatory in Ohio
Oh,
State Reformatory.
favorite place in the world.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. But it was the first Halloween that they had opened it up for a haunted house situation. I don't remember the year now. I know I was in high school, but it was the first year, and my brother took me, and I fell in love with the building as soon as I saw it. And then it became like an annual tradition to go back every Halloween to go through. And then eventually I was able to go for a regular tour. And then years later, I was there to be able to spend the night a couple times. And that's how I met you a year, a two, something like that. There was a group of us that met up and got to go to Mansfield. And I was with Brandy from the
Yeah.
Blondes and Booze podcast, and that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's just something that's always kind of followed along, and then just been a thing of interest. And even in college, I would try to get my professors to talk about spooky stuff if that was even an option, especially around Halloween. I'm like, yeah, if we're gonna do a lesson on like certain Latin phrases or whatever, can we talk about curse tablets instead for this week? And just trying to always find a spooky route for stuff.
You know, and I would say like investigating OSR was a truly amazing experience. Like
Mhm.
I I have never out of all the investigations I've done, and I'm close to over 100 now,
Mhm.
and I'll tell you, hands down, OSR was a true. That was like a dream location next to investigating Alcatraz. OSR was like my favorite. When I found out that was a real prison, like, of course, my favorite movie of all time was Shawshank Redemption. And when somebody says, "Oh yeah, that's a real prison in Ohio," and I was like, "Are you serious?" And then, and it was, I think it was like a couple weeks after that, somebody goes, I was scrolling through Facebook, and I think it was Tim Shaw or somebody was saying they were speaking at this event called ParasiteCon.
Mhm.
And when I saw the location, I was like, "Are you serious? They have a paranormal event on top of this?" So I that was the first time and I will truly admit, the first time I stood in the gateway of OSR, I actually shed a tear.
Mhm.
It was like a dream come true. I couldn't believe I was standing there staring at this
Yeah.
magnificent building, and when you walk in, it
Yeah.
you just take it all in, and it is
Mhm.
so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just gorgeous from the outside, and then when you get into the cell blocks, and it just keeps going. It's just so tall. And yeah, it definitely is. There's something
It-
special about that building.
yeah, I mean, when you listen to the background stories of uh, OSR, I mean, really, it's not a beautiful place at all. I mean,
No.
it's a horrible place,
Yeah.
but it's like when you sit there and look at it, I mean, it on the outside, when you're looking at it straight in, it's hard to believe like that's an actual prison.
Mhm.
It's so like the design of it was very well done. I mean, I've seen prisons before, and they just like straight up stair walls, no design to it. It looks like a square box,
Mhm.
but they really outdid themselves. So yeah, no, anybody who's not been to OSR, highly recommended. They put on Greg and Kathy do amazing events there all year long. You can go there anytime and do self tours, or they do tours on a regular basis. But also
Mhm.
too, they incorporate stuff to do with the Shawshank as well. Like you can take a full
Yeah.
Shawshank tour and you get to
Yeah.
go into Mansfield and see all the different scenes from the movie and everything.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, they have those life-size cardboard cutouts of people from Shawshank, which is fine and great during the day. But when
yeah,
you're doing an investigation at night and you walk into a room and forget they're there,
they're there.
you just you stop breathing for a second because you're positive that you just ran
Yeah, yeah,
into a
yeah.
shadow
You're like,
figure.
is that a shadow figure? But yeah, um, truly, that was a great night, and I was so glad that you were a part of that because when I brought Brandy down and she goes, I got some really cool friend, and I trust Brandy so much because I never like I've only known Brandy to do the cryptid side of the world. When she said she was so interested in down doing OSR, the paranormal, I was like, sure, let's do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great night. We had a lot of fun that day. A lot of people walked away with some amazing experiences.
Mhm.
But yeah, hands down, if you ever get an opportunity to go there, go. It's an amazing building. But let's continue on before my obsession turns into like a screamy little girl that I am talking about OSR. So years go by, and now here you are. You're working. You're working. How did you get into working on this documentary?
So, okay, so Small Town Monsters, as a company, started in 2015. Seth Breedlove started the company, and the first documentary. Well, I guess he started technically in 2014, but the first documentary came out in 2015, and it was the Minerva Monster. And growing up in Carrollton, which is not far from Minerva at all, and where I currently live is Minerva. Word spread pretty quickly that there was a documentary about our local local community, and that it was Bigfoot related, and yeah, that that got my attention. So I saw the Minerva Monster. They actually had a Minerva Monster Day, which was like a festival in downtown Minerva. I went there, brought my oldest daughter with me. um, but anyway, they were on my radar after that, and Seth released a few more documentaries after that. And when he released Mothman of Point Pleasant, there were aspects to it where he integrated some folklore and history in a very particular way that I actually reached out to him on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'm really digging what you guys are doing. Like that's awesome. I really appreciate it." And that kind of opened the door of communication, and we kept in touch. Um, and another year or so goes by, and I went to one of the premieres that they had at the Canton Palace Theater, and it was there that they announced that they were kind of looking into future documentaries, and one of them was going to be about the Bell Witch. And I had already been doing some research about the Bell Witch, so I reached out to him and I'm like, "Hey, I don't know if you need like a researcher or anything, but I've already been looking into this, and I'd love to help." Um, so Seth said, "Yeah, actually, we're at that point where we could probably use a researcher to help with this." And he said, "Well, let's start with Momo, the Missouri Monster." So I started with that actually, and then Mothman Legacy, and then the Mark of the Bell Witch, and then my role in the company has grown from coming on as a researcher, just helping with locating potential witnesses, to now like producer, director, the chief content officer, I think is the actual title at this point. But yeah, very, very much involved with things like Courtney Breedlove and I just went to Michigan at the end of May, and we filmed a documentary that we directed together about the Monroe Monster. That just came out like a week ago, so it's on YouTube to see. And yeah, we just I don't know. It's been a whirlwind, really.
But that is so amazing. I mean, you basically get to now live out your passion.
Yeah.
And get to travel around
Mm-hmm.
and dive into all of these stories that a lot of us have probably heard, like the Bell Witch. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a fascinating story, and of course, my guilty pleasure is Mothman, and and it's people always ask me, it's like, what's your obsession with Mothman? You know what? I really can't tell you. Besides the fact, once I saw the movie, The Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere,
Mm-hmm.
there was just something about the stories that intrigued me. I mean, everything about the paranormal intrigues me,
Yeah.
but I guess just the thought of this huge bat-looking creature flying around and making appearances, and I mean, it's not just in Mount Pleasant that it's been seen. It's been seen around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those. It's I guess it just draws me in because you know to think okay, we have Bigfoots, we have dogmen in the world, we have the Loch Ness monster, we have ghosts, and now you're gonna throw in a big giant bat at me. It's like it's like this is amazing. So yeah, so it's cool that you get to do all this and dive down rabbit holes and talk to people. And I mean, my next bucket list to scratch is going to the Mothman Festival in
Mm-hmm.
Mount Pleasant. I have never been there. I was supposed to go the one year. I was going to meet up with Mike Hartman and his wife Stephanie. They were there. Uh, I think it was like work got in the way, and then of course, then we dealt with COVID, and
Yeah.
it just seems like every time I'm like, okay, gotta mark this down. I see their advertising. I even reached out because I wanted to bring the Paranormal Voice to the event, but they
Mm-hmm.
said that their vendor list is so full
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
mean but hey, if it was meant to happen, it'll happen.
Yeah.
But I will get there one of these days.
Yeah. I hope you
So
do. When you do go, the years that I've been there anyway, it's been extremely hot and sunny. So whatever water you think you need to bring more, because you're gonna need it.
so just go find a barrel of water with a pull
Yeah.
cart and just put a
Yeah.
straw in it.
I think that would work. Yeah.
Uh, hello, Technical Bigfoot Research. How you
Hi.
guys doing? Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, here's the lovely Rhonda Hart.
Hi.
Okay, so let's get back. Sorry, I get excited talking about Mothman too. So I mean, there's not really too much I don't get excited about because people who've met me know just how passionate I am about doing this.
Mhm.
So, but
That's a good thing.
yeah, it's great, and this is my way of living out my passion about the paranormal is being able to sit here and talk to amazing guests like yourself and pick your brains. So so we usually try to discuss, so I want to know what is the most ghost related thing that's scariest that ever happened to you?
So ghost related thing okay. Probably the most unnerving ghost related thing that happened to me would have taken place at OSR in Mansfield. And It's happened a couple times, thankfully, so that I know I'm not insane. But the first time that this occurred would have been several years ago now. We were there doing a little bit of filming during the day, and then once the film crew left, then the group that I had been going on different investigations with stayed, because the deal was if you were there for filming, then we had access to the prison until like 3 a.m. And so I was like, well, if the crew is done by 11, I'm still staying till 3. You're not throwing away this opportunity. Right. So
No.
I kept had my crew there, and they had already been out. They were up in the west attic and had been investigating there while we were wrapping up filming. And pretty soon they came down and they're like, you got to come up there. There's something really weird happening. And um, they start to describe a little bit of what has been going on. I'm like, all right, whatever, let's go see. So we get up there in the west attic. For anybody who's not familiar, it's an interior room. There's no windows at all. You like walk off the side of the chapel. There's one door that you walk in, and then it's known for having different colored lights that flash around the room, which was the reason we were in there anyway. But what happened was is we went to the far side, as far away from the door as possible, and sat in some aluminum chairs that were there. And we started to see the lights. And we'd be like, oh, do you see that green light? Yeah, I see it to my right, or I see a blue light to my left, or whatever. And so we were kind of verifying what each of us were seeing. But then we saw a figure like manifest on the floor, like a it's like a light being. It's like the opposite of a shadow person, but because it was made of light. And I'd never seen anything like that before. It would pace back and forth. It would come close to us, drop down on all fours, crawl at us, back up. It would walk over by the wall, and it emanated enough light that you could tell when it was by the wall, because you could see the wall just slightly. That was extremely unnerving because I've never heard of anything like that. I had never seen anything like that. I had nothing in my knowledge base to even equate what that could possibly be. But this was something that, it interacted with us for probably 30, 45 minutes. We left, went somewhere else. We'd come back and it would appear again. And this happened like 3 times throughout the night. And this was something that I had told Brandy about. So when we went as a group, then that was one of the first places Brandy wanted to go, was up to the west attic. Yeah. She's like, let's see if we can see it. And it was a whole different group of people with me. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm thinking, I hope something happens because, I have the 3 people that were with me the first time, but I haven't been back since.
Right.
But we got up there, and sure enough, they saw it. It manifested again. They saw it. And it did similar things. And it was wild. It was comforting for me in that moment, because I'm like, other people can confirm that I'm not crazy. But everybody was still unnerved because, what is it? Now, the first time that I had seen it, that night after we'd had that encounter, I went and talked to Greg, and I'm like, is there anything? Because he's the one who had told us about the colored lights around the room.
Yeah.
And I was like, has anybody ever mentioned a figure? And at that point in time, he said, no, I've never heard of that before. Nobody's ever really talked about it. But then a couple years later, when we go back with Brandy and we have our experience, I go down and I talk with Greg again, and he said that people had been seeing something, and they started calling it the Glimmer Man. So I guess that's an accurate name for what it seems like. But that was probably one of the most unnerving things that I had seen, while investigating somewhere.
And it's funny you mention that, because when we were up there later that night, I was with Tim Shaw, Frank, Heather, um, and so Frank wanted to go in there by himself to experience that room by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he walked all the way to the back wall, but then as he was walking back, he said there was like a figure standing in the doorway, like blocking the doorway. Like he couldn't even see us outside, standing outside on that little walkway that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So that was pretty amazing in itself. but yeah, it's that area. It had a lot of activity. I think most of the people that went up there that night said that was one of the more active places. Besides the one room that they call the I can't remember what they call it, but it's like a room and it just has one single chair in the center of the
Yeah, the
room.
chair room. I think they just call it the
I
chair
guess,
room.
I guess it's obvious. We'll just call it. Yeah, but yeah, it was. But yeah, like I mean, a lot of people were going in there and saying that was active. I know. I think it was Bree and Nick that had a pretty good experience in there as well. But yeah,
Mhm.
that whole place, and like I said, the because when I was in there with Tim and Frank and Heather, and I think my son was with me. Um, I never got to see any of the lights, but we did see a lot of like shadows moving around.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was pretty crazy place. So
Yeah.
um, I would say I would note that a lot of people had some pretty amazing experiences in just that location.
Yeah.
Um, so I somebody's got a question for you down here. Expression Outdoors want to know: have you ever had a cryptid encounter?
Um. So. Yeah, I would say so. I haven't had a visual encounter, like I haven't seen Bigfoot. But the place that I live, the farm that I live on, has had activity. Enough activity, so much that we actually filmed a series on YouTube called the Bigfoot Project. We filmed it here at my house at the farm,
Oh wow!
because we had had so many odd things going on. But I mean, it's been, it's the first episode, I believe, of the Bigfoot Project. You can see that we actually caught a lot of activity on camera. Like Seth was here. We have a hunting cabin at the back end of the property, and um, the kids were at the the kids were at the cabin inside playing, and Seth and I had walked out into the woods, and we could hear things running around us. Something threw a rock at us. It hit the ground next to us enough that you could like feel it hit the ground. It was thrown so hard. And while that was happening, my husband was still at the cabin where the kids are, but he was sitting out on the porch and he could hear something on like bipedal coming up to the cabin.
Wow!
At first, I think he thought it was us, but then when he yelled out and realized we were too far away to even hear him, so there were multiple things. But when Seth and I were out hearing stuff run around us, it sounded like at least two things were occurring. Um, but yeah, we've had, and actually, I I always kind of gloss over this, but while they were out filming on the farm, the one day I was staying here at the house with the kids while they went out and filmed B-roll, so just like scenic shots of the farm. Um, they went out and drove all around. It's like 300 acres here, and drove around and got different things. And then when they come back to the house, Seth is losing his mind because he saw one while they were driving on the gator on the side by side. They were going by where a clear cut area is, and he saw something stand up and run into the tree line. That's also on, like, we have that on camera. You can't really see because he was the one facing that, but you can see him run off of a moving gator, just jump off as it's running because he's so excited running toward it. Um, but so he had his visual sighting here at the farm. Um, so I would say that that's the closest, because normally, and I think that obviously that's because I live here, so I'm here a lot. I get to, experience these things, but a lot of times when we're out filming, um, it's like short little spurts in the woods or whatever, and there's a bunch of people and it's kind of loud, so we're not really sneaking up on anything. We're not like out in the woods like when Alex goes out, Alexander Petikoff, and he does his stuff. He's like a one man team or what. He'll go out and just stay overnight somewhere. He's got a better shot, I think, at finding things with the camera rolling than we do. But we were really lucky when we did the Bigfoot project here, because stuff was just, so much was happening. We had just moved here, so I don't know if it was a combination of the fact that there were new people and something was extra curious, that we'd had the kids out, so they were extra curious. Like, I don't know, but it just seemed like a lot of things aligned, and then it just took off from there.
So, would you think it's a family of Bigfoot that lives somewhere around your property, or a tribe of them? Because you said there was possibly a couple of them. So, I mean,
Yeah.
usually when people like uh, from past interviews and stuff, like most people like have interaction and might have an extra see one, but
Mhm.
to think you heard hearing two of them, uh, that's pretty amazing. So to me, I would think like
Yeah.
in that close of an area, there could possibly be a tribe. Now, you hear a lot of people talk about Bigfoot structures in wooded areas.
Mhm.
Do you guys see any of that from where you're living, or have you experienced it?
So there was one place in the one set of woods up here at the top of the hill that had some wood that had already been like cut. It wasn't like branches were twisted or broken or anything. It
Okay.
was actual cut pieces of wood that were all kind of stood up and leaning against a tree. We didn't do it. I don't know if it was done before we got here by
Right.
someone else or what, but we didn't do it. So there was that. But other than that, I haven't seen, like, I've been to places where people have these really massive looking structures where branches have been twisted but not totally broken so that the leaves don't die,
Right.
and it provides the extra foliage and cover. I haven't seen that here. No.
Um, Now, being there, um, have you tried anything like while you're there, the film crew's not around, like any type of contact with them? Like, because I hear like people will do, it's called an offering
Yeah,
stump,
gifting.
eh, gifting stump, where they'll
Mhm.
lay something down, they'll ask a question, and they'll just walk away and then come back the next day or something to see if what they left is gone, and if there's anything like of what you asked, if you've gotten any signs, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yes, I've done that. That's actually part of what tipped off me having Seth even come out for an idea for a show, was because
Oh,
there had been an odd encounter shortly after we had moved in here. A friend had come in from out of state, and then we had some interactions with the howling and whistling and tree knocking
right,
and branches breaking, things like that. But after that had happened, I went back into the woods like the next day or so and checked some places where I had put like crystals around the woods, which I didn't do for gifting purposes. When we first
right,
moved here, I went and took a bunch of crystals and hid them in the woods because I thought it'd be cool for the kids to find someday, just like a treasure hunt, like they're going through the woods and, oh, there's this awesome piece of quartz. How cool. Um, so I went to the places where I had dropped those stones off, and in the one stump that I had wedged a couple pieces of crystal in, the one chunk of crystal was gone, and in its place was a deer vertebrae. So um I immediately like freaked out and picked it up, and I'm looking at it, and I call Seth, and Seth was like, "You didn't pick it up, did you? You didn't touch it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm holding it." And he's like, "You shouldn't have touched it. It could have had something on it." I'm like, "All right, well, whatever. If it's meant to happen, then we'll figure it out." But um so that was like, after that is when Seth was like, "I think I need to come out with a camera and let's see if we can catch any of this on film." But after that had happened, what I would do is I would take I brought the vertebrae home and I kept it. Um, but I would take different crystals out and I'd put them in different places, and I would take pictures of them. So they had the date and the locate, where they were. And then I'd come check on them once a week or whatever. And it was probably a month or so before that crystal that had been taken came back, but it was placed in the same place that it had been taken, and it was all dirty. Like, it looked like it had fingerprints on it, but they were smeared. But it came back in the same place. Other crystals will get like moved, or would get moved, but it would just be like, I don't know, it'd be a decent sized crystal, and then it would be like, like a geode type larger chunk of crystal, and it would be several feet away off the stump, or something like that. But yeah, I've had crystals taken from the stump that they're on and then moved and wedged in between like the outer layer of bark and the inside, where you have to really jam it in there. I've also, on my own, jammed the crystals in there so that you're only getting them out if you have like fingers, and they've been removed and thrown on the ground. So like, it's, yeah, that kind of thing happens. I don't go out with any type of intentions when I do it. But yeah, those things have happened here.
So I mean, I from talking to a lot of people in the cryptid world, and especially people that have, like, live in areas like you do, where they believe there's a Bigfoot living in the woods that their property happens to be on.
Mhm.
It's like you almost create a trust thing, and it's the same thing in the paranormal field. Is that when you go and visit a place time after time, the energy, the spirits in there, they get to know you. So, and then it builds a bond and a trust. And a lot of people go, well, how do you build a trust with something that you can't see or touch? It's like anything else. But like you said, you have no bad intentions, so they pick up this up, and I believe, as intelligent as Bigfoot is as a species, it's got to know, like any other. I don't really want to say that they're animals, but when you go to somebody's house, their dogs or their cats will trust you.
Yeah.
And I think Bigfoot are the same way. They know who has good intentions on whatever they're doing, and they know who's got bad intentions. So it's great that you're building this trust over a period of time. Another question just came in, and I always like this question because it is a hot topic. Do you think Bigfoot and aliens have a connection?
Personally, I don't. I have heard this theory before, and I am aware of multiple sightings where people have had, a UFO sighting happens to correspond with an uptick in Bigfoot activity, or a sighting at the same, around the same time, same location. But I just don't. I don't know. And part of that is probably also, well, because I'm pretty open to a lot of different options for these things. I don't know what's going on with these creatures or entities or whatever they are. But when it comes to aliens, I always get nervous. And I have since I was young. The whole idea of aliens in general, I'm not discounting that they exist. I think, of course, they would exist. I think it would be naive to think that they don't.
Right.
But the idea of something like that being intelligent enough to get here and then mess with us or interact with us or whatever, then I'm like, okay, you're at a level way beyond where we are. That scares me.
Right.
So I tend to shy away with anything when it has to do with alien stuff, but also just in general with the witness reports that I've come across, people that I've talked to. Very rarely does that seem to be the consensus of people that I've spoken to personally,
Right.
who have
Right.
had interactions that are like, yeah, I feel this is an alien type thing. Normally it's either flesh and blood or some sort of interdimensional thing is how they're feeling.
And the only reason why I think there could possibly be a connection is just for the fact that whenever you talk to a lot of Bigfoot researchers or people who have been following Bigfoot for long, they've been known to be able to just disappear into thin air. Now, I
Mhm.
know Bigfoot is very capable of cloaking, so they can turn themselves invisible. Uh, but they've also been known to just disappear into what looks like portals.
Mhm.
And that's where I think that the whole alien and Bigfoot connection happens because I think aliens would be the only ones that would be able to create a portal out of anything and just zap anything through. But also, too, eyewitnesses, and there's like Ronnie LeBlanc, for instance. If you've read his book Monsterland, he talks about seeing traveling orbs through the woods and then having a Bigfoot experience type of deal.
Mhm.
So that's where I see. I mean, it's all hypothetical because we don't really know, right?
Yeah.
Because first of all, we have to be able to come face to face with a Bigfoot or an alien to find out for sure,
Mhm.
and I don't see that happening anytime soon. People that are in the alien world, they say they're coming and they're going to show themselves. So
Mhm.
I I look forward to the moment. Nothing really freaks me out more than like I don't really get scared anything about the paranormal field because I've
Yeah.
seen so much and experienced so much that
Mhm.
I just bring it all in because I am the type that wants the answers and want to know for sure. Do I want to meet a Bigfoot? Maybe from a very far distance, like if you could see, there's an island right in the middle of the water, right across from me. If a Bigfoot
Yeah.
was to appear over there, that'd be fine because he is way across the water.
Right. Right. It'll take him a
uh,
second to get to you should he choose to.
I also live it up on the seventh floor. Okay, I saw King Kong. I know he can probably climb, but would I want to witness it? Absolutely, because you know what? I've experienced the paranormal. I've experienced some
Yeah.
really scary stuff with ghosts. Why not know everything that's going on out there, like Bigfoot? If I had my choice of cryptids that I'd want to meet up with, Bigfoot definitely.
Mhm.
Not a dog man. There was a
Mm-mm.
question here. Expression outdoors. I think I should just bring you on. You're asking amazing questions tonight. Do you know any cryptics that are known to be violent? I would
Yeah.
say yes because of the stories that I know,
Yeah.
but none of them has been Bigfoot. I'll tell you that much. Heather, I'll let you chime in on that because you've done way more research than I ever have on cryptids than, but I would just say that I think any cryptid would have the tendency to be violent if felt threatened.
Sure. Yeah, I've definitely heard they're not they're few, but I've heard stories of Bigfoot being aggressive. But like I said, they're few. Far and away, people don't come across a Bigfoot and have a negative interaction, so to speak. But as far as violent cryptids, hands down, it would be Dogman. You don't hear a positive story about Dogman. I don't think I have ever really heard one. I've heard ones that are like neutral at best, and that's still with a feeling of heavy darkness attached to it.
Right.
But in general, it seems like the dog man would be the cryptid. If you were to say which one's violent, it'd be that one.
I would agree with you there. And I mean, I remember we doing a show with the amazing woman Chatan Norwar. God
Mhm.
bless her. She has passed on. We lost her this year.
Yeah.
I always called her the walking encyclopedia of cryptids. Like, you want to know anything about a
Yeah.
cryptid, she was the woman to talk to. Um,
Yeah, we were
and
lucky
she
enough to have her. She's going to be in our Dawn of the Dogman movie. We were fortunate
oh
enough to talk with her. So yeah,
that that's amazing. I'll definitely have to catch that because, like I said, she was such an amazing woman, kind-hearted, gentle soul, and like I said, God bless her. God bless anybody who had the chance to sit down and talk with her because she was a walking encyclopedia. So tactical Bigfoot research. What witness sighting has been the most compelling?
oh man, that's a really tough question. So oh man, that's really hard. Because we have interviewed a lot of people that have had various encounters, in varying degrees of how it affected them. I don't think that I can pinpoint necessarily one that is stood out to me as like, I don't know, the one that stuck with me the most, so to speak. But when people, I'm always moved when people are emotional, and you can see the effect of what their encounter had upon them, even years, decades later. Obviously, it's difficult to sit down across from Martin Groves and have him recount his Dogman. Well, I guess Bigfoot was also involved in that, but Dogman encounter, and you can see on his face just how much that that bothered him, it messed with him for years. Um, so I mean, any witness where it's very clear that there was a almost like a paradigm shift for them after that encounter. Like, the world is not as I saw it before, and you can tell that that has definitely affected them. That was those ones always stick with me. There was a woman we interviewed, um, in Alaska, that had grown up in a small fishing village, and she had had an encounter as a young woman with a creature coming right up to the window, and she still remembers like when she describes it, the weathered face and the red eyes, and because it was just a little sliver of its face that she could see. And as she's telling us this, she's darting, like her eyes are darting to her window now,
Right.
which is not the same. It's not the same place. It's not even, not even close to the same location, but it bothers her now. And she was in her, I don't know how old she was, in her 70s or 80s when we were talking to her. And it was something that happened to her as a young woman. So those kind of things always stick with me.
Yeah, I mean, I we had the pleasure of talking to Vic Cundiff, um, uh, but I mean, some of the stories he was telling us, and he says when he interviews these people,
Mhm.
you can really tell how much the experience has affected them,
Yeah.
and it like rocks them to their core. I mean,
Hmm.
it's really scary to think about that. What these people who witness encounters like this really do. It's something they would never forget. It's just one of those things, and uh, like I said, God bless like people like Vic Tungup and you guys out there telling these stories for people, helping people understand. Here's an interesting question: do reptiles constitute as cryptids or aliens? I would think reptiles would be more alienist to me, uh, because of their just skin, where we see aliens or we've heard like aliens are just mostly like skin type creatures, not really furry. Where cryptids, I think of hairy things. I mean, I know there's a Loch Ness monster who is a slimy dinosaur-looking creature, which could be a reptilian. So now I have to rethink my answer on that one. But Heather, I'll let you answer.
Well, this again, we're getting into alien territory.
Right,
I've never heard reptilians talk like spoken of in a way other than connected to aliens.
right.
So that's that's what I would say. Yeah, they're
Yep.
aliens.
And we have if the Patterson film is real,
Hmm.
why is it no one has been able to get a good guess, good footage as that? What are the people doing wrong, and what did Roger and Bob do right? So that I mean, I imagine you probably field this question hundreds of times because you are out there, you are filming,
Hmm.
and all the footages that have come out over the internet uh, over the past few years of people claiming to have Bigfoot, or why are they always blurry? Now, I know we talked about this with Ronnie LeBlanc on our show at one time, but I'm going to let you talk about this and get your perspective on that.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. Why we haven't had footage as clear as that, so to speak, because there is footage out there that people have had by sometimes by happenstance. Something that local researcher Don Keating won't say that it's a Bigfoot that he caught on film in the 90s, but just happened to be panning, not intentionally, just panning around, and then a year or so later sees something walking along a fence line. Um, like just definitely, but clearly not as clear and decisive as what you see in the Patterson Gimlin film. If we're throwing out the idea that Patterson Gimlin film may not be real, and I'm not even going to get into that, but if we're saying this is an authentic um, piece of footage, then I think part of what we're dealing with now is your best bet to get one on film, so to speak, would be to go to a place where they're known to frequent, for one, like
Right.
up your chances. Don't just randomly show up in a place, be somewhere where they frequent more often, but also
Right.
know that even if you get something clear as day on a camera now, because of AI being as good as it is, and it still has its
Yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
but it can be really very convincing. You're going to have a really tough time, even if you were to catch something as clear as what we have in the Patterson Gimlin
Right.
film.
Right.
Your people aren't going to buy it. You're going to need a body. Like, I mean, that's my opinion. Um, Anything short of that, I don't think is going to be widely accepted as is authentic at this
Um,
point.
no, and I would agree with you on that. Now, like I said, talking to people like Ronnie LeBlanc on this, and who's who's been doing Bigfoot research for years, um, asking him that question, and his response was something to that in his belief, and I would tend to believe this too because of if they're able to uh, cloak themselves, they are obviously operating on a higher vibration than us,
Hmm.
which I believe in today's technology, though, everything is digital, and digital can be affected by sound waves. So, I mean, there's been some pretty convincing pictures that I've seen,
Hmm.
video wise. Nothing as clear as the Patterson film,
Hmm.
but I also think that was shot on a totally different type of piece of equipment. If it
Hmm.
was shot on today's type of equipment, would it be as clear? And really, it is not crystal clear, though. If people really
Hmm.
look at it, it is not a crystal clear. There is some blurriness to it. I
Yeah.
mean, for those who have actually watched the documentaries about it, because like I said, over the last few years, it just seems more and more, and it always goes back to that one film. Um, because it's been the most compelling. And I mean, I have seen shows that have gone to that spot where that was filmed, that area where it was filmed in California. They've
Mhm.
used new technology because people always said, "Well, how can you tell how tall it is?" Well, by their grid, by what they're using as a grid, by the base of where the Bigfoot would have, how tall it was up on it, like passing by trees, they were able
Mhm.
to determine um, that it was consistent with a Bigfoot sighting of something that was over 8 feet tall because of the where its head was on about at a tree mark. So, but like I said, it was great, but it wasn't the best film ever. Like, it still had its flaws to it, but it was also shot on a totally different type of equipment. It wasn't a digital equipment like what a lot of film producers use nowadays, or camera crews. Like, everything is digitized nowadays.
Mhm.
I mean, the most compelling one that I saw to date that would be, I think it came out last year or the year before. It was the one in couple of going on a train through Colorado,
Mhm.
and they caught a Bigfoot walking alongside of the mountains, and then it just sat down, and then it just kind of disappeared after that. To me, that was the most interesting one, but still, you I mean, you could walk out today, go take a picture standing beside a Bigfoot, and people will tear it apart because I don't think people really would accept it if you were to produce them an actual Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I, I
that
think
that that's
also,
that's my theory on it, and it doesn't matter. The skeptics will always be skeptics. Believers will always try to find some truth in it, and
Mhm.
it's it's going to be something that we're going to talk about until the day we do find a body. And I mean, that's another question. Why have we never found a Bigfoot body? Do they ever die? That's the $1 million question, because nobody's
Mhm.
ever seemed to find a Bigfoot body or a bone that would even relate to a Bigfoot.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is the forever going. Uh, yeah, this is another one. The picture of the Loch Ness monster. It wasn't that great, but there it was, something that was standing out of the out of the water, something unexplainable. But wow, what an amazing hour! I can't believe a whole hour has gone by. We are definitely going to have you back, because we need to pick your brain some more and talk about everything else that you're up to. So right now, I'm going to give you this opportunity. Anybody who wants to reach out to you, what are you up to? What do you got coming on that you can tell us about? And are you going to be doing any public speaking?
Well, going backwards. Public speaking, third weekend of September, out in Missouri at the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Conference, the Crossing Realms Conference. Lots of people putting it on, not just them, but I associate it mentally with them. I'll be out there in Missouri speaking on cursed objects. Um, as far as things coming out, the Monroe Monster, go check that out on YouTube. That was, a thing that I helped direct, and I was really proud of it. Put a lot of work into that. So that's out on YouTube. On Tuesday, I will be on Small Town Monsters Live with Jesse Doyle from Hellbent Holler, Courtney Breedlove, my co-director from Monroe Monster, and then the host Aaron Deese. And we'll be talking about not only the Monroe Monster that we just filmed, but also the Monster of Morris Mountain, which Jesse directed. So that's pretty cool. It's going to be like a girls' hour, minus Aaron, of course. He'll just corral us, I guess. Um, but you can always email me, Heather at smalltownmonsters.com. And just to keep track of whatever I'm doing, you just watch Small Town Monster stuff. You'll see me around.
That's awesome. I thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us here at the Paranormal Voice. It's been such a great pleasure. We are definitely going to have you back
Anytime.
to talk some more about cryptids. I'd like to thank our show sponsor, Paraware. The QR code is in the corner. If you are into your paranormal attire, t-shirts, everything, you guys got to check these out. Amber is such an amazing lady, her and her husband Jason. But yeah, they are going to be our sponsors for the next 4 shows. I'm appreciative to have them on board, supporting the Paranormal Voice. So we love to show them. So you want, and they got some amazing cryptid T-shirts. Let me tell you. So go and check those guys out. Paraware QR codes here. Also, too, you can find their website link in the description below. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It was a pleasure having everybody on the side. Thank you guys so much. You made the show so enjoyable tonight. Heather, have a great night. In the meantime, and in between time, I'd like to say is happy huntings.